Okay, now before we create our sticky form field for our select drop-down menu, if we scroll up to the top inside of our form.php file, we're going to create another method. This new method will be called public function is post, and we're going to pass the field name, and we assign default value of null. First of all, we're going to check if is an empty field. And now if it isn't, we check if is set post with the name of the field, which we've passed as a parameter. Then we simply return true, else we return false. Obviously we don't need to use else, because if this true is returned, semicolon, sorry, at the end, then obviously nothing else is going to be executed from this specific method. Then if is empty, then else. If isn't empty, post. So we check if post has been set in general. Then we return true. Otherwise, we return false. So this is one of the methods we need to create. Next method we'll be creating, so a few new lines to make sure that we can read the file without any problems later on. Next one will be public function get post, and we will pass again the field name here, so equals null by default, and we check in if it isn't empty field, then return this is post field. So if it is post, in other words, then strip tags, and we want to get post with the field name. Otherwise, we return null. Okay, let's put it on the two new lines so we can actually read it better as well. So if it is and if it isn't. Okay, so this is our get post. Let me explain a little bit what's happening here. Basically, we're checking if this post if the post with this field has been set. So let's say if we've got in our checkout.php, we have, let's say, first name. We check if this first name has been set. In other words, if the form with this field has been submitted. If it has, strip tags basically removes any HTML tags. You want to use this because it's a quite good security improvement. I mean, for us, obviously, when you create new forms and allowing people to post any data through their web forms, make sure they use the strip tags, because someone can put some nasty code in it, like let's say JavaScript or something like this, to run on your server. Obviously you want to avoid this, so strip tags removes any kind of HTML tags, and it simply posts everything as just static text. So we're getting this value without any HTML tags, if there were any put in place. So obviously we get this post with this field name, otherwise we return null. So that's all here. If we scroll down now, and after actually we can create it before, it doesn't matter. If we create a few new lines, our new method will be called public function sticky select, and we pass 3 parameters: field, value, and default. Default will have null assigned by default to it. And we check if this is post field and this get post field equals value, then I'll scroll up a little bit, return, and in between a double quote, first space, selected equals backslash double quote selected backslash double quote and semicolon. Else return if default doesn't equal null, or we can also put it as isn't empty, so isn't empty default, and default equals value, then question mark, display as well the same thing, I mean return the same thing, So obviously selected, colon, otherwise return null. So this is our sticky select method. Again, what it does first, it checks if it's if the field if the form has been submitted with this field name, and obviously then gets the value from this field and checks if it's equal the second parameter, the value passed as a second parameter. If it is, then select we basically select this drop down menu item. Otherwise, we check if default isn't empty. If it isn't, and default value equals the value passed as a second parameter as well, we have the same situation. We basically select the menu. Okay, so now we use this method inside of our, scroll down, inside of our get country select. So after our country ID value, we're going to create the double quote, semicolon, then out dot equals, and we're going to close our opening option tag. But before we're going to create out dot equals, and this sticky select, and the first parameter sent to this function will be country, which is the name of our select tag. Then we have country ID as the value, and the last thing will be record, which obviously by default is null. If it's going to be passed as null, the first statement of our sticky select will be executed. Otherwise, if the value will have some, if we will pass some value, then obviously the second part, the else statement, will be executed. So that's our get country select. Let's save the file, go back to our page, refresh, and you can see now after refreshing, because the post has been sent again, the selected country stays within the select field. If we select different one and click next, it stays here. So let's move to the next video and create sticky form fields for our text fields.